It is wonderful to be with you again. This has been a great weekend as an opportunity for us to encourage one another and to worship God together. I have been blessed to get to know you in this, and hopefully we'll be able to come to some future year of this, and I can bring my family along so they can all get a chance to meet you as well. But as I was going through preparing for this lesson and deciding how to tackle this, there's a little bit of a unique challenge and opportunity with a prompt as general as encouragement. I think Mark kind of spoke to this a little bit with his prompt as well, in that there's a lot of different ways that you can tackle these topics. And what do we mean when we say that we encourage each other? How is it that we are encouraging each other? I think generally the easy answer to that is, well, we say kind things to each other. We thank each other for the work that we are doing, and we remind each other not to give up and to press on. And that is very important. But I think encouragement goes deeper than that, and there's a way to help make it not an empty words that can be easily ignored or forgotten. And so the lens that I want to have for this morning's lesson is encouragement through service. And to do that, we need to go to John 13. John 13 is the account of Jesus washing the disciples' feet. And he is teaching them some important lessons here, some things that they are not really ready to deal with and are quite shocked to see Jesus do. And I think we'll get a lot of benefit out of studying this together. Let's read John 13. We'll start with verses 1 through 5. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Jesus had a lot on his mind at this time. We are in the lead up to his crucifixion, to his arrest and the mock trial and all that he was going to have to endure. He knew that his death was coming soon. He knew that Judas would soon betray him. And he knew that he would soon be raised and would return to the Father. And all of these things were necessary to prepare for the establishment of the kingdom. And it won't be very long after this that we see how overwhelmed Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane as he is preparing to go through these things. Not that he had changed his mind, and not that he was giving up, and not that he was not willing, but we see the human side of Jesus there with that trepidation about what he is going to endure. So all of this is surely swirling in Jesus' mind as he is preparing for all of these events to come. But at the same time, he is needing to prepare his disciples. The disciples are not ready for all of these things to happen. Jesus has a lot to deal with, but Jesus is capable of dealing with those things. The disciples are not yet ready for all that is about to happen. The purpose of Jesus' teaching was to prepare his disciples for life in service to him. That was true for this inner circle of the 12 who were following him and obeying him, and true for the other disciples who came and went. These people who followed him already valued serving Jesus and learning from Jesus. They were not the ones who laughed at what Jesus said or who claimed that he was operating by the power of demons or that he was simply a rebel here to cause trouble. They believed that what Jesus was doing was important and that they needed to learn from him. But there was still more that we needed to learn. There's a transition in the book of John. John is covering a lot about how Jesus is life and light in the world. All the way from the opening words of the Gospel of John, we see those things laid out for us. He is life, he is light, he is bringing goodness and righteousness and salvation to the world. But the other L word used in the book of John to describe what Jesus was doing and what he called them to do was love. And the disciples generally, by this point, believed that Jesus was the source of life and light. I think they're still wrapping their minds around the consequences of that understanding and all exactly of what that means, but they generally believe that he has something good to offer and that they need to follow him wherever it is that he goes. But what they're struggling with is their relationship with each other, their conduct toward each other. We're going to show that quite a bit more as we go through this account. But they are not yet in the proper place of love toward each other. And so in the next few chapters, Jesus will continue to ground them in their faith in him and in the Father, but he will also help them to be united in purpose and behavior. And that includes John 17 that was referenced in Mark's lesson of pulling together for unity and wanting them to be bound together in their service to God and in their connection to each other. I actually found it quite difficult to write a lesson talking about encouragement without talking about unity. So trying to find a way to not step all over Mark's lesson, the two go together, don't they? And really, in reality, Mark talked about encouragement as well, because how can you not? How can you not have unity and encouragement go together? That is the goal and the point of why we are united. The other Gospels show us that this Passover meal that we're reading about here in John 13 was when Jesus also established the Lord's Supper. The Passover was this yearly observance, very important to the Jews, a memorial of the salvation and the deliverance that they had in the Exodus from Egypt. And that is so crucial to Israel's story that it was probably the most important of the observances that they had. But Jesus takes that and he adapts it, modifies it for a new covenant observance of the Lord's Supper. And that's what we have observed here today, something that is actually, we learn, a weekly observance. And as important as the Passover was, this is actually more important in that we are remembering a greater deliverance than what Israel had out of Egypt. And I don't say that lightly, because Israel's deliverance was key. But our deliverance from sin and from the slavery of sin is even more important than that. So there's a lot that's going on in this meal. They're observing the Passover, Jesus is instituting the Lord's Supper, and there are a couple of fascinating conversations that also happen in this. And you have to stitch together some of the different accounts to see all of what is going on. It is a full day here of some interesting conversations and teachings. But what we see is that Jesus, during this supper, stands up. He takes off his outer garment and he sets it aside. He takes a towel and he ties it around his waist. He gets a basin and fills it with water, and he begins to wash and dry their feet. We'll talk about the implications of that and the reactions to that as we go forward, but probably we should read a little bit more of this account in order to do that. Peter's reaction will help us to understand. So John 13, verses 6 through 11. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "The one who is bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him. That was why he said, "Not all of you are clean." So Jesus is washing the disciples' feet one by one. We are given no words as to what they thought about this, at least until Peter speaks. Is anybody surprised that Peter is the one who speaks? I'm not. This is absolutely what Peter does. Peter, of course, is the one who protests. And as Jesus makes his way to Peter, Peter says in this incredulous tone of voice, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus confirms his intent, and Peter protests all the more. "I'm not going to let you. Don't you dare. You shall never wash my feet." Now, we need to understand something about the cultural context of this to understand Peter's reaction, why he is so strongly opposed to the idea of Jesus washing his feet. In the Greco-Roman and Jewish cultures, the washing of feet was commonplace and actually had a lot of different contexts to it. They did it for different reasons. Today, it would be unlikely and bizarre if one of you offered a guest, let me wash your feet for you. That's not something that's a part of our culture. It's not something that we do. But to them, they had lots of scenarios where they did this personally or for another person. This was part of a ritual of daily cleansing, kind of separate from just the idea of bathing. You got a ritual of purity involved there as well. To the Jews, it was a religious and pious act that they would wash their hands and feet before the Sabbath, to symbolically enter the Sabbath day with clean hands and a pure heart. And then maybe the one that we are most familiar with and gets talked about the most in biblical contexts is an expression of hospitality and service. That when you had a guest enter your home, that you would wash their feet as this show of hospitality. And I think you may have heard the rationale behind that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us today, but in a time when they walked on dusty roads and they wore sandals everywhere they went and they're walking long distances, yeah, it makes sense that you would need to wash your feet. And this is something akin to welcoming someone into your home, making them feel at home and relaxed, transitioning from the dirtiness and exhaustion of travel to now being comfortable and at home, even though they are in your home. But it's more than that. It's more than the analog of maybe offering somebody a drink of water, or saying, "Here, take the good chair and kick back and relax and recline for a while. What can I get you? What can I help you with?" There's more to it than that in their context. As much as it was an expression of hospitality and service, it was also considered a very low, very humble act to the point of being demeaning, or at least debating over how demeaning it was. And I want to share with you a couple of accounts from that time period that will help you to understand that. Excuse me. There's a Jewish story from just a little bit later than this of Rabbi Ishmael, who was away on a long journey, and he comes home, and his wife tries to wash his feet. And he protests and he says, "I can't let you do that. This is too demeaning of a task for a wife to do. We don't want you to lower yourself and to demean yourself to wash my feet." And she strongly disagrees with him and actually goes before the rabbinic court and argues that even though, yes, this is a demeaning act, because she has so much love and devotion for him, that it's actually an honor for her to be able to wash his feet. Now, the conclusions of this are not actually that important to us. What I want us to realize and to focus on is the fact that this was a debate. The fact that this was an argument that needed to be made. So this is not the same as a drink of water. You know, when I return home, driving from here, heading back home, and if I walk in and Lauren asks, "Would you like a drink of water?" I'm not going to have this sort of reaction to her. I will not let you demean yourself so much as to offer me a drink of water. That would not really make sense. So we get that washing feet was something important. Remember that when Jesus went into the house of Simon the Pharisee, and when this unsavory woman has washed his feet with her hair and has anointed him and has done all these things, and Simon is judging Jesus very strongly for allowing this woman to touch him when she is not a good and honorable person, Jesus rebukes him and says, "When I entered your home, you didn't wash my feet. You didn't anoint me with oil. You didn't offer those sorts of hospitable and acts of service toward me. And so you dishonored me when I came into your home." And so this dishonorable woman ends up getting praised because of the way that she treats Jesus. So the washing of feet was important, and it would be an insult not to do it, but it's held in balance and tension against this idea that it's also demeaning for the person who's doing it. So for that reason, it was left to the lowest person in the house, for sure. It was left to be a servant's job. It's not a peer's job at all. In fact, there were some Jews who insisted that even Jewish slaves ought not be forced to wash a guest's feet. But that's too demeaning even for a Jewish slave. You can let a Gentile slave do that. Don't let a Jewish slave do it, because that is just too demeaning. Again, the conclusion is not necessarily the most important thing there. Not everybody believed that, and that was debated, but the idea that it had to be debated is crucial. This is deeply unsettling and should only be done by somebody who is far below the status of one whose feet they are washing. If a peer tried to wash your feet, you would be embarrassed for them. You would tell them, "Stop that. I do not have that status over you to where you should be washing my feet." Now, Jesus is not their peer, which is what makes this so shocking to them. Of course, this is true because he is deity and they are not, and they are beginning to realize that, although their full understanding of it seems to waver from moment to moment, which, to be fair, it's a lot for them to handle. But even setting that aside, Jesus is physically their superior. Even in their misunderstanding of things as followers of a political revolutionary, Jesus is their superior. Even with that idea that Jesus is going to help Israel cast off the shackles of Rome and is going to make Israel great again and have this empire of wonder that Israel is going to get to experience, when they believe that Jesus is going to be king, it's not proper for him to wash their feet. Of course, Jesus rebukes Peter. He says, "If you won't allow me to do this, then you won't share with me." You can't be my disciple. You can't share in what I am doing and what I am here for if you will not let me wash your feet. And so Peter, in classic Peter fashion, swings too hard the other way. And he says, not only my feet, then, my head and my hands, just go ahead and bathe me, go do everything. And so he's putting maybe too much emphasis on the act itself, in believing that it is maybe a sacrament of foot washing that is accomplishing something special. That's not even really the point of this. There's nothing that significant inherently about foot washing. Outside of its cultural context, it doesn't accomplish anything. We can wash each other's feet here today if we want to, but it doesn't do anything spiritual for us. But this is typical of the brash nature of young Peter, that he would swing from one side to the other. It's one of the reasons why I love to see how much he settles down in his old age as he is writing his letters later. And you see that he's not brash anymore. He's still bold, absolutely. But he's not brash. He's not impulsive like he used to be. And so for all of the young Peters out there, even 2,000 years later, there's comfort to be had in the idea that, hey, we can mature, we can grow up, we can gain some spiritual maturity in Christ that transforms us in very powerful ways. Okay, so now let's move on. Before we move on to the last section of the event, I want to focus on one noteworthy thing. Like I said, we don't have a lot of words given for us about what the disciples were saying, only Peter's protest. But I want to focus on what is not said here. Remember that John records Jesus' slow, deliberate actions in preparing to wash their feet. Jesus does not dive to the floor and ambush them with a surprise foot washing that nobody could see coming. That is humorous to think about, but that is not what happens here. The way that John describes it, going into painful amounts of detail and something that really shouldn't have to be explained that much, shows us that everyone is watching what Jesus is doing and trying to figure out why he is doing it. So they're all sitting or reclining at a table and observing this Passover meal, when suddenly Jesus gets up. And they see step by step, he takes off that outer garment. He gets a towel and he wraps it around his waist. He gets a basin and he fills it with water. And he gets down and begins washing their feet one by one. They all see what is happening here. And at no point did anybody stand up and say, "Hold on, teacher. This isn't right for you to do this. Let me wash the feet because it's more proper for me to do it than you." Now, Peter absolutely protested. And the others were probably just as scandalized as Peter was, even if they kept their protest more internal. But even Peter did not reach out and take the basin and the towel from Jesus. Nobody did. Jesus should absolutely not be washing our feet, but I shouldn't be doing it either. Somebody ought to. I don't know who. Maybe Matthew. Maybe Andrew. James. Somebody's got to do it. It's not going to be me. It certainly isn't going to be Jesus. Somebody's got to do it, and why isn't anybody getting up to volunteer? Maybe we ought to pull somebody off the street to do this. We are the inner circle, after all. We are very important people. When the kingdom of God comes into force, we're going to be very powerful, very important. We ought to have servants who can do these things for us. So Jesus should not be washing our feet. None of us should ever have to wash anyone's feet ever again, because others should be doing this for us. No one was eager to take the lowly position. And lest you think that I am reading too much into their silence, I assure you that I am not, because what we see in Luke 22 is one of these fascinating conversations that happened during this same meal that shows that their attitude was not proper. Luke 22, verses 24 through 27, while this is in another account, it is during the same event, just focusing on a different part of the story. Luke 22, 24 through 27. A dispute also arose among them, as to which of them was to be regarded as the greatest. And he said to them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those in authority over them are called benefactors. But not so with you. Rather, let the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is greater, one who reclines at table or one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines at table? But I am among you as the one who serves. Right before this, we see this meal identified as the Passover. We see Jesus institute the Lord's Supper. Jesus is trying to get them centered and prepared for what's about to happen. And as he's trying to get them to focus on kingdom life and all the tests that are going to come soon, they are bickering over what rank they will have in the kingdom. They were happy to put themselves forward as candidates for leadership and honor and prestige. I bet they had a lot of opinions about that. I bet Peter had something to say, because Peter always has something to say. I bet that James and John, the sons of thunder, had something to say about that. I bet that Simon the Zealot and Matthew the tax collector had some interesting conversations with each other about who was going to be greater in the kingdom. They are all very concerned over who is going to be the greatest, who's going to be Jesus' right-hand man. If we are the cabinet, the round table of advisors and leaders in this new kingdom, what are our exact roles going to be and who will outrank the other? They wanted to be leaders, but they were not happy to volunteer for humility and service. Jesus had to address this, and he did so in a powerful way. And I find the juxtaposition of their jockeying for position against Jesus' simple, lowly service to be quite striking. He says, while you're busy arguing over who's the greatest, I'm filling a basin with water to wash your feet. And none of you are arguing that you are greater than me, yet look at what I am doing for you. And so that brings us to the last section of this, where Jesus drives the point home. In John 13, 12 through 17, when he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. Life in the kingdom is about service and love. Your love for God leads you to serve him and to serve others. This is the Christian way. This is what we are commanded to do. It's not about our position and our rank and our worth. We don't have the hierarchy in the church of the ranks that you can climb through until you become the vaunted member of an exclusive society at the very top. It doesn't exist. No matter how long you're a Christian and no matter what role you serve in the church, you don't ever get higher than anyone else. You don't ever get better than anyone else, because we are all servants of Jesus together. If Jesus could lower himself to walk the earth as a man, even that alone is Jesus humbling himself. Even if Jesus had come as a triumphant king to be bowed down to on the earth, it would still have been a humble act for him to come in human form, in human flesh. That already is a big step down. But the fact that Jesus came as a lowly and inconsequential person by earthly standards, the fact that he would do things like wash the feet of his disciples, eat with sinners, associate with the lowly, it seems pretty humble to me. A servant is not greater than his master. If Jesus could lower himself to that degree, I think I can probably manage to lower myself to serve you. There's just not as much of a delta there in how much that I have to lower myself in order to serve my brethren compared to what Jesus has had to do. So consider these things carefully. I want to spend a few moments drawing these things together and say, what does this have to do with encouragement? We're talking about service more than anything, humility more than anything today. Why are we spending time with that when we're talking about encouragement? The way that we encourage each other is, I think, it can be divided into two categories, really. And Mark talked some about one of these, about the idea of working together in the church. When we put our hands to the same task, when we have that collaborative effort together, it is encouraging to see that I am not the only one who is working. We have a tendency to feel isolated sometimes. We get the spirit of Elijah and saying, I am the only one left. I am the only person in all of Israel who still loves God. And God says, of course you aren't. Why would you think that? There are thousands left who serve me. You just don't happen to know them. And that happens with us sometimes. I've mentioned to several of you, and you probably gathered by now, I'm the relative newcomer to California. And I've had people from back home in Texas say, what churches are out there? What brethren are out there? What preachers are there? And I go, I don't know. I don't know any of these people. I know a few, but not many. And it's a good thing that the book of life is not dependent on who I know, right? Because most of you probably haven't heard of Del Rio, Texas before. I hadn't heard of it before I had gotten there. That was not a place that was meaningful to me at all. We don't always know what brethren are out there serving God. And it's in moments like these where we get to interact. That's one of the amazing things about this weekend. I think that you've brought in some preachers from other places. You have opportunity for visitors from other congregations and locally to come in and to worship with you and to work with you for a brief time. There's encouragement there, isn't it? When we're all putting our hands to the same work together. And now when I'm asked, hey, what churches are there out in Southern California? And what brethren are out there? I can say, hey, there's this church in Indio. And I got to meet them, and I got to be encouraged by them. And I hope that I encouraged them too. And in the brief time that we could put our hands together, there was great value. So there's that benefit as we are encouraging each other through our service. And that happens with the far-flung brethren, but it happens locally with the people you're working with daily, weekly, constantly. How hard would it be if you had to be the only Christian that you knew? That you had to serve God all by yourself throughout your life? That terrifies me, the prospect of that. I don't know how I could handle that. I don't think I could. That God knows that we need each other. There's a reason why he has us come together, to work together, to be an assembled and united body together, as different as we are and as many things as want to pull us apart, that we are his. And so we belong to each other. But additionally, the other way that we are encouraged through service is how we serve each other. Not just working together with each other, but how we actually directly help each other. And this, I think, is even the closer application to what Jesus was getting them to understand when he washed their feet. There was something embarrassing about what Jesus was doing for them. It was too much. It did not make sense to them. And I have experienced 1,000 times over that when we're doing it right, that's the kind of service that Christians show each other and that Christians show their community around them. I've been the beneficiary of that kind of service before. We moved into Santee and immediately had a lot of brethren there to help us, that stocked our fridge with groceries and gave us ready-made meals and helped us move into our new home and did all of these things that were very kind and helpful to us. And then we got pregnant and had a hard pregnancy where Lauren was not able to go anywhere for a long time. She got shingles really badly and was told, don't be exposed to the sunlight for weeks. You might get nerve damage. And it was and that on top of pregnancy was hard. And once again, we had brethren stepping up for us, serving us and helping us to such a degree that I began to feel embarrassed. It was too much. Don't help me that much. Don't lower yourself that much. That's beginning to feel demeaning. That's what the Christian life is about. We do that for each other. We go farther than it seems like we should to be helpful, to serve, to meet the needs of our brethren and of those that we meet. Everywhere a Christian goes, he should be a blessing. And I've seen that play out enough times that I know it to be true. This is the most encouraging thing that we can do for each other. We can embody the Spirit of Christ, and it doesn't come naturally to us. But when we can put aside our desire to be to elevate ourselves and to be concerned with ranks and classes and circles and all of these things about our own status, we then can have the enthusiasm to serve one another. Thank you for your attention this morning.